meeting. So Jamie will call the names of those who are currently full approved members of the commission, and then we'll do a round of welcome. Jamie?
Yeah, I'll work on that. All right. Randy Hogan,
Here.
Chuck Spanger,
Here.
Pete Slavinsky,
Here.
Perlett.
Here.
Excellent.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you. And let's welcome our guests and soon to be, hopefully, pending council approval, members, Marla and Rita and Richard Harvey, and anyone else on Zoom.
Yep, we've got Todd Souza, our community
Oh, yes.
services director, is
Yes.
joining us. Eric Sanderson, our planner, and also in attendance is Andrew Mackey.
Welcome, everyone. And
So-
of course, our town councilor liaison.
Hi guys, nice to be back.
And there's
Welcome
Missed you
back.
last month.
Excellent. And Emily is present. We're just going around welcoming everyone.
Very good.
So Richard Harvey, our,
Hi, Richard. Nice to
what,
meet you.
what just happened was the appointments committee met recently.
Oh,
and,
yes, I heard.
Affirmed for council, hopefully future approval, new members to the committee. Affirmed you to renew your term. Thank you, Emily. Richard Harvey as a alternate voting member. Marla and Rita as voting members. So, and then we've got Todd Souza, Eric Sanderson, and Andrew Mackey in guest attendance tonight. So a full house. It's exciting. I want to begin our time together with an acknowledgement honoring all Indigenous people, the people who came here before us and nurtured this place as stewards of Mother Earth, the first people. I make this acknowledgement aware that this land is unceded and that issues of water and territorial rights and encroachment upon sacred sites are ongoing in the Wabanaki homeland. I acknowledge the Owasquag people who once lived in what is now Scarborough, and that as we support efforts for land and water protection, we honor the current tribes who have stewarded this land throughout the generations. So you got in the materials of minutes from our last meeting. Take a motion to approve, or a motion to approve.
I move so.
Thank you. Chuck,
I second.
you want to take a,
I sure do. Randy Hogan,
yes,
Chuck Spanger.
Yes.
Emily Springer,
Yes.
Noah Perlett,
Yes.
Slavinsky.
Yes.
Thank you all.
thank you. So tonight, we have a full agenda as usual, but tonight we're going to spend, the thought was to spend the first 25 minutes or so to have an overview of the Pest Management Advisory Committee's responsibilities before we were officially consolidated by town council approval. And Todd Souza is here as our guest, and Marla and Rita will walk us through, and this is a chance for us to learn now what our ongoing responsibilities and opportunities are regarding pest management. So we'll open up with that. Then we'll go into our goals spreadsheet and talk about what we've done thus far, what we have before us, and what opportunities there are, including the continuation of discussion around the proposed planning on Mussey Road, the multi-unit development planned and proposed there for that corner at 8 Corners. And then we'll have our usual updates. Anything else that folks want to cover? Okay. Great. Shall I turn it
Sure.
over to Marla?
Yep, I'm gonna take my mask off while I'm presenting. First of all, I want to thank you all for taking on the management of the Scarborough Pest Management Policy and the stewardship, I should say, of that policy. And I just want to mention, and this is in the actual policy, that this policy it supports the precautionary principle, and that, and I'm quoting here, is when an activity raises threats of harm to the environment or human health, precautionary measures should be taken even if some cause and effect relationships are not yet fully established. So with that as the basis, Scarborough looked at creating this policy. It's based on other policies that other towns had at the time. This is back in 2011. So it's based on Camden and Acknowledgement and a few other towns, Castine, that had passed policies. So in the attachments, you got a copy of the Town of Scarborough Pest Management Policy. It's currently listed under the webpage with town ordinances. And I've asked that a copy or a link you put onto the Conservation Commission webpage so that it's easy to find. It actually is somewhat difficult to drill down into the policy, but now I get how it works because I did find it today. So if you have the Town of Scarborough Conservation Commission responsibilities concerning Scarborough's pest management policy, if you could look at that now. So Rita drafted this and I edited it, but she did such a great job. Thank you, Rita, for doing that. So on PMAC, and now this is going to be the responsibility of the Conservation Commission, we work with the town manager to keep pesticide use at or near 0 levels as much as possible. We advise the town manager of any problems encountered or amendments required to achieve the implementation of the policy. We advise the town manager. We consider granting waivers in emergency situations. An emergency is defined in the policy as something that poses an imminent threat to serious injury to persons, property, or agriculture. And of course, you can define property in various ways. So I think the town considers turf to be property and a resource that they want to protect. We also need to seek the participation, advice, and counsel of experts. And we've done this over several years, and conduct ongoing educational programs. And Rita is going to talk about our education outreach after Todd speaks about what he's doing and what he's done with community services, which has been pretty exciting. So I'm just going to briefly look at the emergency waiver request. So these are a bunch of questions. And again, Rita drafted this. Thank you so much, Rita. This is really wonderful. You can read through this, but basically we've asked the town to come to us with a request for a waiver. What is the disease? What is the pest? What has been done already? What other methods or products are available? Why have you chosen this specific product, and what are the cautions? What's the toxicity information? We need to look at all of that prior to considering a waiver. So there needs to be lead time, and we've learned through history that we need at least, I would say, 2 to 4 weeks before a request needs to be voted on. That's just necessary because the meetings don't go well if the request comes at the meeting. We have to have time to look at the labels, look at the material safety data sheets. We need to think about it and ponder, is this the best course of action? Because for the most part, the town can use all approved products. Anything that's on the OMRI list, which is the Organic Materials Review Institute list, and this is in the policy, anything that's exempt by the EPA. So certain chemicals are not toxic and they're exempt from even having an MSDS sheet. So we need to have some time to do that. And we want to know, where's the issue? Where's the pest problem? can we do a localized spray, or are we being asked for a broadcast spray? So, and those are even questions that the town manager is asking of Todd when Todd is making this request. And then we want to make sure that the public sees the notifications, and there's very specific language about the notification process in here. So it goes beyond what the Board of Pesticide Control requires. So you have to put signs down at least 48 hours before the treatment and for 72 hours afterwards. So it's 2 days before the treatment and 3 days after the treatment. It has to be visible with a sign of 72 point type, and that's all in there. But that's important. That has been missed a couple times where there was spraying that occurred because it has to be done with the weather and all these factors have to be taken into consideration. But the signage has to go up 2 days prior. If there has to be an application without that, there has to be a really good reason. But the town manager has the final say in all of this. So I will say this: if you go to our 2019 report, which our PMAC created, and it's on the website, it's on the Conservation Commission webpage now.
I didn't include that in the packet, did I?
No, it's not included, but you can find it on the Conservation
Yeah.
Commission webpage. It's there. It's at the very bottom, and hopefully the policy will be like right near it, so you can click on one or the other. So prior to the policy, the town was using substances like 2,4-D and glyphosate, which is in Roundup, and dicamba and pendimethalin and a bunch of things. And then after the policy, most of those have never been used again. Actually, I think all of them, but it was interesting. 2 days after the policy was passed, there was a Dialox application for grubs at this middle school in Wiley Field. And this was actually before PMAC was even formed. And then there have been acelepryn applications for grubs in 2014, 2018, and 2019. And then there was a Thermador. I don't know if you were with us when that happened. There was a spraying for ants at Blue Point School and Scarborough High School because they had ant infestation at both schools. So they had to spray for that. So that's happened a few times. Again, it's up to the town manager to make the final call. But I think as you'll see, Todd Souza's going to talk about this. He's done a lot to get the management practices in place to really reduce that pesticide level to almost zero, not exactly zero, but almost there. And he's really done a lot. It's been great to see the town really embrace and implement the policy as well as it has been implemented. So want to thank Todd for that. And I'm going to hand it over to you, Todd.
And Pete has a question real quick.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah, I have a quick question. Thanks for the update on that, Marla. That makes a lot of sense. About the emergency waiver, besides, it's just a notification, basically. It's not like we go through that and then decline the request, correct? Or,
No.
or could it be declined? I mean, what's the point?
Can be. Yeah,
Well, I
it
mean,
can.
kind of
It's a
what's the-
recommend. Okay, it's a recommendation that the committee, previously the committee, now the commission, is making to the town manager. So Todd comes to us with a request. And what's interesting about Scarborough is that Scarborough doesn't do its pesticide application in-house. It has a contractor, and has, for as long as I've been on PMAC, there's been an outside company doing the spraying. So it was Sportsfields Inc., or, prior to policy, and then it was, it's Green. So it's really that contractor who's going to Todd, who's saying the acelepryn needs to be used now for grubs. The grub damage is such a problem. The turf is being all eaten up. I mean, the issue with the grubs is that animals will go after them and dig up the turf, and then it's argued that it's a safety issue. So the waiver we can make the recommendation that the town not use this. That's totally, absolutely fine. I think that that has happened. I think most of the time they've been approved. Individual members have voted against it. Ultimately, it's the town that's going to make that decision. But it's good to weigh in. It's good to have eyes on it and to discuss it and think about it. And sometimes I have even seen Tom Hall send it back to Todd and say, you know, we need to try this in a smaller area, or what else can be done. So
Okay, thanks. And is there like is this information used to also inform the long-term use or the long-term effectiveness of our ordinance in some way? I mean, is there a database that's developed from each time an emergency request is made so that we can kind of keep track of things?
well, so a lot of that information is in the 2019 report. But what I realized today when I was on the town website is that our old PMAC meetings and agendas are not on the town website anymore. So I'm not sure where all that information has gone. So I sent an email to a few folks and hoping to hear at some point, not even necessarily tonight, but I'd like to be able to access that information. I think it's important.
Working on,
I don't know.
not to jump in, but they're working on when the two committees merged, they pulled down the PMAC and they're working on getting the background information from PMAC over to the conservation. There was two buttons, two sections that wasn't linked over. One was all the old soil tests, the results, and then any waivers that were granted, and then
Okay.
just all the back history from the last 11 years was there. So they are trying to get that merged over. It didn't come over in the direct merge for some reason. So that is being worked on by Brian and Allison on the town side.
It sounds like that there is a dedicated place where emergency waiver grantings are tracked, along with a couple of other pieces for us to be able to see
Yeah,
quickly.
everything that goes out, whether we're putting down fertilizer, whether we're putting down anything, gets tracked through that and is logged there. So
Okay.
Thank you.
Have in the past, has PMAC suggested organic alternatives for things like grubs?
Well, yes, and that is part of the process, is the town has to go and because it's really, I mean, every town has to have an integrated pest management policy, at least for school grounds. It's required by the state. And so actually in our report, 2019 report, it refers to the school board policy that relates to IPM. But this is an organic pest management policy, but it's similar to IPM, but not quite the same. But they're supposed to use any organic methods first, least harmful chemicals first. They're supposed to really try everything possible before making this request. So yeah, that's part of it. And we all have to educate ourselves continuously about the new products that are coming out and the new, any new management practices that are, an option. So we have to continuously educate ourselves. And there's also state laws as well that are now coming into play because the state has banned some chemicals as well.
Is that something that you and Rita would be able to do? You take the lead on and bring it to the committee or the commission when?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
great.
sure. Yeah. And we can definitely think about that and how we can put information about this on the Conservation Commission website too. Maybe we can add some links to, we'll think about that. There could be some great resources there. And of course, Rita has done an amazing job with homeowner resources that we had on the old website. So
Oh, great.
we have a bunch of things that we need to work on.
And
too.
I have requested that all of those materials get posted to the Conservation
Okay.
Commission website. So I'm hoping they'll get to it this week. And I'll keep an eye on it and let you all know when it's there.
That would be great. Yeah. And there's some groups like Beyond Pesticides, which is a national group, and they list frequently used chemicals and their environmental effects and their health effects. They have like separate lists of, and it's just a great, thing to reference. So we could put some of that information on there as well. And yes, I'm definitely happy to work on this and to try to, bring any issues to the forefront to the commission that I hear about. And, I can take a lead on the research aspect if there's a waiver request. I just hope that we have, again, some lead time in between when the request comes and we have to make a final vote on it. So we just need some time to do that, our due diligence.
Thank you. Todd?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me, and congratulations on this merger. I think it's a positive thing for everybody. Joe, just kind of where we are as a department, actually April was my 5th year here. We were really heavily dependent on contracted services. My 2nd year, we were able to shift some of those financial resources for us to be able to buy some equipment to be able to do some of the cultural practice in-house. So now we have, equipment to be able to seed, we have equipment to be able to aerate. So we really spent most of our time and efforts with our staff on the cultural practices, trying to overseed and overcompete with weeds versus spraying them. We look at, we treat different surface areas. This is something PMAC work, we had quite a few meetings on it where Marla mentioned it, but, we have, what I would call premium athletic surfaces that see, 4 to 6 hours of practice a day, and that needs to be a different quality than and a different care level than one of our community parks that may get 2 or 3 hours of competitive play, but it's more of a neighborhood resource. And so we've kind of looked at our facilities based on the use and the impact, because we do have a responsibility to our athletes to make sure we have a solidified turf that they feel safe on and plays well and maintains well. So we've done that as a staff. We haven't asked for a waiver, and I think it's been 2 years. We did go through quite an extensive process with Grubs a few years back. And I don't want to misquote the dates, but there was a year off, and then we did 2 years based on research. And so we did a lot of the organic practices. We tried some different products. Again, the grub world is still kind of new in the organics as far as how it affects. We did the last time, so we did a Celeprint on a bunch of the parks and playing fields, and then we learned through just kind of education in other communities, doing a Celeprint back-to-back seasons has given us 2 years off from doing any sort of grub treatment. And on that 2nd year, we only did the prime playing surfaces that were being ravaged by animals, skunks and crows, and then we did an organic application on the outskirts that were getting some damage but wasn't actually on the playing surfaces. So we've tried to be flexible how we do that. We're not asking for a waiver this year. As far as that product, the Celeprint grows, it's one of the safer to put down. One of the things I've learned since my time here is just because it's organic doesn't mean it's safe. They all have, frequency and volume and, what equipment you got to wear, to safety equipment to put down, and how all that all operates. So we're not asking for an Celeprint waiver this year for grubs. We didn't see the volume that we did in the previous year. So, and folks on the PMAC committee know, but usually that's got to be done as soon as the temperatures reach in April. So if we needed to, we wouldn't be able to bring it through the process because we would miss the window as it is. So when it comes to grubs, it's probably something we'd bring to you in late fall, early winter, if we needed to start that conversation based on what we've seen or see in the fall, because it's an application that's got to go down as soon as we can in the spring. And we've had some conversations with the school. Again, it's integrated, but they haven't had to come forward with a lot of requests. Those, again, the ants was the big one. And then for us, it's just trying to continue to educate ourselves. I think right now we've got 3 people on staff that are, have taken the organic class and are certified. We're not, again, we use It's Green as our contractor. but his contract is up, and so we're having those conversations now. What are we looking for and what's going to serve us well into the future? We just haven't had, we finally are up to a full staff. We haven't had a full park staff in 2 years. And so one of their goals was to try to get some crew members that were certified to apply. And we're just not there yet to try to reduce that cost and dependency. And some of the challenges that we had, I know it was probably 3 or 4 years ago with regarding some of the signage that Marla was related to. It just, the contractor had to do it on a weekend and we didn't notify the school. So there was a day missed in that notification process. And I think that was about 4 years ago. And that's some of the challenges we run into with the contractor and weather. But other than that, we've been really just trying to focus on cultural practices, mowing heights, water, overseeding, and then really focusing on aerating. We're kind of running in some challenges with that where a lot of our irrigation systems in town were set at the minimum depth. And so it takes a lot of time and people power to go out and, raise all the heads, mark them, make sure, we're not ruining lines and crushing heads because they're all the old plastic sprinkler heads. So they split pretty quick. They're not the metal ones. Working through that. And then again, our staffing is our important piece, and just looking at what we can do with the staff, and then also what we have to supplement with contracted services. So now that we have a full crew, the last couple of weeks trying to get out and get things opened up. But yeah, so I think somebody made a question around the waiver. I just saw it pop up. Hang on a sec.
How long is
How
it?
long can emergency waiver? It's per application. So whatever we ask for, it's on a case-by-case basis. So we've brought waiver requests to the committee when they've come back with more question and answer. And we haven't brought it forward usually to Tom until we get most of the PMAC committee questions answered. And sometimes they don't, well, my first year, they didn't do it. And I think it took like 3 months of going back and forth. And then the last 2 times, I think we had a good system in place as far as understanding what it was and why we were doing it. And I think we were all better educated on the cause and effect and the timeliness of it and what it meant. So, but other than that, I mean, just to be transparent, our biggest challenges right now are garden bed weeds. We've been working hard over the last couple of years we've got a lot of beautiful gardens in Scarborough, but we've been trying to shrink them up on size just to make them more manageable, especially like around the pond area, because it's either got to be, and then we haven't been able to yet, but do we consider replanting them with different stuff, looking at more native stuff, less management versus what we have. And so we're hopefully going to get to that point in the next couple of years of how we start doing that process versus where we are. But it's something that hopefully this committee can start weighing in on when we talk about developments, talk about buildings. We built the PMAC building. I mean, sorry, not the PMAC building, the public safety building. We built this long garden along the roadway that's, I don't know, 300 feet of just managed area. And so some of those things, I think we can take a better look at of how we choose better plantings. And I think that's where this committee and, other people in town can help us along the way. So that's my 2 cents in a nutshell. I'll take any questions from anybody.
Any questions?
I just have a follow-up on the clarifier on the one I asked. So Todd, if you come in for an emergency waiver and it's granted, it's for every single application?
No.
Or if the treatment is 2
So if I
years?
Nope. So if I come in and I
emergency waiver
say,
applies to
okay,
that.
we have a grub issue, right? Let's say we have a
Yeah.
grub issue at the middle school.
Yeah.
I may be coming I have to detail what it is. I may come in and say, I'm looking for a waiver to put a cellophane down on the middle school softball side of it. It's for that one application. That's it.
Yeah.
And so if there's multiple times, we did it where a few years back, we had grubs really bad and most of the parks had some area that was done. When we followed back up, because we found through research, doing back-to-back seasons, and that's why we haven't asked for it in a couple of years. It just, something about that product hits all the cycles of the grubs when you do it back-to-back, because the way it goes into the ground. And we asked for specific site, like, okay, we drew it up where at the middle school, like for example, on the baseball side of middle school, we said we are going to do the playing soccer field. We did all the boundaries around it that were getting dug up, and I can't remember the name, but it was an organic grub product. And so we did 2 different types of products on that field. One, because we want to see how it worked, and 2, it was near a water body. So
Noah?
Thanks, Todd. 2 questions for you that are related to each other. The first is, when you ask for a waiver and do an application, how long is that field off limits for use?
it depends on the product. They all have a different entry time frame. So it could be that it has to be shut down for a day. Depends on the weather, whether it's got to be wet. And some don't. Some, as soon as they dry, they're playable.
Okay, and that length of time is determined by
The product.
the product itself, or it's a federal standard that's determined by the product?
So the product to be on the OMRI list has gone through all the testing pieces. And so that product, once it's on the OMRI list, means it's been gone through, and I'm not going to try to tell you what's the checks to be on the OMRI list. But whatever that label of that approved product says is what we follow.
Okay, and then presumably the same is true for all organic methods as well. They probably have some toxicity where people are advised to stay off the fields as well for some periods of time.
Absolutely.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you.
Sure.
Marla?
I just want to follow up with that. It's my understanding so that the policy states that some chemicals you don't even need a waiver for. We would get notification about it, but we don't need a waiver for it. So those are substances that are like on the OMRI list, which is the Organic Materials Review Institute. So they are actually, it's this institute that reviews these chemicals that can be used on organic farmland and gardens. And so they review all of these chemicals, but there's some chemicals that don't make it on that list. And those are the ones that we would probably need the waiver for. And each chemical, its manufacturer has to have labels, and the labels state how long people have to stay off of a property. But this is partially why we notify people through the signage, so people can know when the application is going to happen. And so they can say, okay, Memorial Park is going to be sprayed on Tuesday. I'm going to keep my kids off them for a few days. And I have actually done that sort of thing. And it's just like, it's similar to the signs you see when you walk around neighborhoods everywhere. It's like that. And so, and with Memorial Park, they have to post at pretty much all the places, all the entry points. So they're kind of like ringing around the park. And what else was I going to say? I can't remember now. But yeah, it's really the manufacturer that tells us. And truly, unfortunately, our federal government does not fully test chemicals. This is part of the reason why this policy is based on the precautionary principle, because just because something is for sale does not mean it's safe. So we want to use the least toxic, really the best chemical is no chemical, in my opinion. But the town I know is doing the best it can.
No follow-up?
I do, and I apologize. This is a bit of a pivot to the right-hand side, but it's related. Does the town have any known history of using PFAS on its or sludge as fertilizer on our town-owned fields? Do you have any known history of that?
Not that I know of. I mean, Marla may know prior to, at the beginning.
I have actually looked at the PFAS map because the state has that's accessible to the public, PFAS, and there are some properties in Scarborough where PFAS has been spread. I don't believe it's any town-owned land.
No, and there are, to my knowledge, right now, there are 2 properties identified. One is Scarborough Sanitary District, which makes sense because that's where it's all being concentrated. It's not necessarily being spread, but they are doing testing there. And so it is on
Interesting. Okay.
their site. The other one is out in West Scarborough, and I don't exactly remember. It was a strange site for it to be identified there, all very low levels. And then there's another site that the town is exploring as a potential site, and it's called the Tibbetts Road Sludge Site, and we're in the process of we're hiring a consultant to do testing there because we believe that there was historic spreading there, but it is not identified by DEP. We've tried to get documents from DEP and they don't have anything. So the town is going to be doing some testing on our own to understand what is happening or what may have happened at that site. And if it's found there, then we will put together kind of a plan for addressing it.
And sorry, that's a town-owned property?
It is a town-owned property.
Okay,
No, that was actually one of the properties that the Conservation Commission in a past iteration visited and made some recommendations for, which was, I think, if I remember correctly, don't do anything but get it tested. Thanks.
so I just need one clarification on that. I appreciate the details. That contamination occurred prior to the town obtaining the property or after?
I am not sure. I've just become involved with that within the past couple of months. I can't remember. I feel like it was a private property that allowed sanitary sludge to be spread there, and then it was obtained by the town.
Okay,
And this all happened like back in the 80s.
I
okay,
think
thanks.
you're correct. I think you're correct, Jamie. I think it might have been one of the properties. I know Andrew was on it. I think it was a piece of property that was identified. And I think you're right on that it was a private piece then paid by the town for
All right.
whatever reason.
All right, thank you. I appreciate this is a bit of a right turn, but I appreciate the detail.
Noah, do you see the commission taking any action, doing anything in this area in the future?
I'm sorry, was that just to me? Did you ask me that question?
Yeah, because you asked the question, I just wonder if you wanted the commission to do anything about it or put it on a future agenda for further discussion.
I would say only in the case if that particular property with known history has, if there's discussions of more active use by the town, by our residents. If the lands that this commission is stewarding has no known history, then at this point, I don't see any reason for us to spend time focusing on that and talking about that, because we don't have a policy. Our policies don't go to private land, right? And so I don't see any reason for us to spend time on that unless there's actually a history of our town spreading. Like, for example, Peterson Field used to be a landfill, right? Might there be, that was kind of the context of what I was thinking. Is there histories from previous that we should be thinking about? But if the answer is no, that's fantastic. I'm psyched to hear that, and we can just move on. So no, I don't think so.
Thanks, Noah. Thanks for the question. And Rita, would you like to add anything to the PMAC discussion? Oh, here we go.
Oh, is all your sound?
We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Ken.
Okay, great, thanks. Just wanted to talk briefly about some of the educational materials we have put together over the past several years, and they're primarily focused on how to transition to organic lawn care. We have a spring, summer, and fall sort of edition that we have put together. Marla also put together a wonderful piece on native plants and knows quite a bit about them and has worked with the Wild Seed Project. And as you know, we did put together a sheet on tick awareness, which thankfully Allison has already published in the, I think the May 1st e-news. And all of these information sheets have been recently updated and given to Jamie. Jamie is going to be putting those onto the commission site here shortly, and we appreciate that very much. And we also work with Allison, not only getting him into the e-news, but also into the leader on occasion. So we will be working with both Jamie and Allison to try to get that out to folks through those two vehicles. We have also put together, thanks to Terry Eddy, who was a long-term PMAC member and who has just recently had to step aside to care for some aging parents. But she worked very hard to put this trifold brochure together along with help from Jamie. And unfortunately, it finally got finished and published and printed just as COVID hit. So we have not been able to really utilize those or put them out at town hall for distribution, that sort of thing. So we have been talking a bit about this. I think Marla is looking to perhaps put some labels on these already printed brochures, because it now says PMAC and now we'll need to say Conservation Commission. And I believe, Jamie, you're willing to do some additional updates eventually to make sure that it does say Conservation Commission and has a new QR code and all of that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yep, those updates have been made and given over to IT to post on the website. So hopefully it will get up there this week.
Great, thanks. Marla mentioned before that in addition to some of the sort of community outreach and education we've been trying to do, we've also on occasion brought in speakers to our PMAC meetings. One was from Jason Lilly from the University of Maine, Cooperative Extension Service on soil biology and testing. And that was very, very helpful because, as you well know, organic land care is primarily focused on soil biology, the soil web, etc. So it was very, a very interesting and worthwhile presentation. And then most recently, I think it was back in 2020, actually, we had Deb McDonough come in to talk about her conservation grazing project. And again, unfortunately, COVID intervened, and the project that was going to go forward with help from the, I believe it was the Onion Foundation, did not happen. But it was supposed to bring in goats and chickens to the Pleasant Hill Preserve, owned by the Scarborough Land Trust, sort of as a scientific project, basically, to see how the goats could actually help us manage invasives. It has been used, to my understanding, in South Portland and other areas quite successfully. And I hope that is an avenue that maybe we will want to pursue in the future. The other things that we did, and I hope to continue doing, in terms of community outreach, PMAC usually had a information table at Summerfest. Again, I think with COVID, not so much recently, but in the past, we did attend. And then Eddie Wooden's Summer Garden Tour, we always have an information table there with information for folks to take home. And the other thing that I did want to mention was a municipal pesticide roundtable, actually, that Jamie put together, I believe was 2019. Yeah, it was a very, very worthwhile workshop, and it brought in folks from, I believe, Portland, South Portland, Falmouth, most of the greater Portland area towns, and we exchanged a lot of really good information about what worked and what didn't work, and I hope in the future we will continue that sort of collaboration so that we can continue to learn from each other.
Thank you, Rita. I like the idea of the commission's webpage being a real resource for residents to come and to learn about how they can support stewardship of their land and continue good practices in town. And the idea of having additional education sessions, not just for the commission, but to invite the community to be part of that. So this is an extension into the education co-leads around really planning how to share this information with people who really care and want to continue this. And thank you all for this background and helping us to get grounded in what it is that we're going to be carrying forward now as a full commission. Thank you. Thanks for your time on that. We are, I think I'd like to just keep us moving so that we can shift into our current plan. I know there's a lot going on, and I'd like to make time for us to discuss that and talk about next steps. And I especially want to call out that it feels to me that there's a real shift now, and that the town and the town council and the chair of the town council are naming climate change as an urgent issue for the town and for all of us. And it's really an opportunity, as we've been talking about over many months, for the commission to really step into our role that we've been ushering forward and really take this moment to move actions forward. And thank you to Jamie for the work that you're doing, but also pointing out that if the chair of the council included climate change as a key issue in the newsletter. So it's our time. Did somebody say something? So let's go into the goal sheet. And for people who are just kind of joining us, we do track our goals now this year in a spreadsheet.
Let's see if I can
Loosely.
actually find it
Oh,
on the
okay.
computer.
It's linked in the agenda. That's.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have it. I do actually have it open. I need to close some screens is the problem.
Yeah, all the time. You just have so much going on.
It is open, but it is not showing up as an option. So just give me a second. Sorry, y'all.
Okay. Well, while Jamie looks for that, our first big goal is conserving land. And we were talking about, under the first part, creating a conservation plan. And part of that is mapping, and part of that is looking how we're going to be doing trail connections and supporting land conservation in town. And our commission co-leads on that are Noah, Chuck, and Pete. So I wonder if any of the three of you want to speak to what you've been helping to advance and what questions you're bringing forward for the commission to consider.
And just
Absolutely.
real quick, can I just jump in real quick and make sure that the spreadsheet is actually on the screen right now?
It is.
Okay, great. Nice.
So you guys can't see it, but I can. But you can see them.
Yeah.
So we'll go with that.
That's helpful. Go ahead, Noah.
Yeah, so thank you. So we have not met yet. We were waiting. We talked about this at the after last meeting, and we're waiting to get the sort of final current map from Andrew, who I think is on the line from the Land Trust. We received that map about a week ago and are now ready to sort of meet in a more formal, structured way to talk about what that leads to. So I'd say hold tight. And now that we've kind of got our first resource to work with, we can go from there and have a bit more for our next meeting. Personally, my hope is that we can talk a lot about particularly conservation and opportunities relative to that map and the Downs development and what that looks like. And thinking about how we can connect communities around the Downs and to green space and to recreational linkages without using cars. And we'll see how we go from there. And I'd welcome any additional ideas or thoughts that you all would like us to try to explore.
Marla has her hand up.
Yes, and I used to work for the Scarborough Land Trust. It was a long time ago, but and actually Chuck Charles had reached out to me to get him up to speed on land conservation, and I actually said, well, I need to be up to speed as well. So I would just perhaps suggest that the Conservation Commission extend an invitation to Andrew Mackey, who I believe is in the meeting, but for a future Conservation Commission meeting, for him to speak about the work of the Land Trust so that we can all learn about what is going on, what their goals are, and what they've got going on.
That's great. I'd like that. Andrew's unmuted. If you want to say anything, Andrew. Thank you, Marla.
I am happy to address this group anytime you would like, and I can talk for hours and hours on land conservation. Like,
I think we had you like in your third day or something close to that when you started your position at Scarborough Land Trust. And that was informative even then. So it'd be great to have you back now that you've had some time in your post and have the perspective. And then I think together with Noah and your experience on your other committee, the Parks and Land Board, it would be really great to hear broadly what that is, what's happening in town in terms of conservation. So maybe Andrew, we can schedule something for you to come, and perhaps next meeting.
sure, sounds good.
And Noah, you mentioned the Downs.
Coco up there. That's not.
Oh my
even
God.
fair.
We have to take a pause here.
Oh my goodness.
Just that I'd have a few baby snuggles during the
But
meeting.
that's not fair.
All the hair.
I
Oh my
know.
goodness.
A lot of hair.
Yeah, this is Coco, and Coco is about 2.5 months old, and she's beautiful, but right now she's opted out of sleeping when but these things happen with 2.5-month-old babies, right?
Yeah,
You guys. She's
One
so
of the humans we're all working for.
Yes.
that's right.
Yes.
Thank you, Coco.
And Pete has his hand up.
Oh, yes, Pete.
I was just going to say, I mean, I know the Land Trust has some specific goals as it relates to conservation, and I know Friends of Scarborough Marsh has some specific goals for conservation, and then we do too as part of this. And I want to make sure that we make every effort possible to make sure we have liaisons in each of those groups, so we have a sense of priorities and can make sure that priorities support each other instead of, we're both trying to do the same thing.
Excellent point. And I believe that we do have liaison to Scarborough Land Trust Board. We have a liaison to, or a member of the commission who's on the Friends of Scarborough Marsh Board. We have a member of the commission who's on the Scarborough Parks and Land Board. So I think you guys are really well represented, and it's the strength of this commission membership. Todd, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to share, and I know a lot of you participated in it, but we do have our ongoing Parks and Facilities Master Plan in the works. And surveys are going to be heading out. If some people should have received a card today or tomorrow to work on that piece, and then it'll go public in a couple of weeks. But we've heard a lot of feedback about conservation, linkage of trails, even sidewalks, and so I'd be happy to be part of any of those conversations and share that data as soon as we get it, because I think it's all relative to what we're all looking forward to do. And I think especially with a lot of the development that's happening, how do we have a little foresight for protection, but also just, even if it's to get property to hang on to make better decisions down the line. I think all that's relative, but I'm looking forward to share that data with everybody once we get it. So,
Thank you.
Todd, is that process closed?
no. So we're taking feedback now. The public surveys going out, and so the company that's doing it's a statistically valid survey. So they're sending out cards to certain demographics in town in different areas, and they'll give a couple weeks for that part to be done, and then we'll do a campaign and get the survey out to the entire community, anybody that wants to take part in it. And then they're gathering all the information from the focus groups, citizen comment, and the stakeholders, plus the survey, and then they'll be sharing that data as they kind of put their report together, and there'll be multiple iterations of that as we kind of go through that process. So there's still plenty of chances for feedback and contribution.
Okay, so thanks, Todd. I just wanted to let folks know I was unable to attend the focus group meeting of the town a week or two ago, and reached out to Todd about that. And Todd was super generous in giving me the email contact for the agency that's been hired, and I was able to sort of submit my comments to them. I really felt like that gave me the opportunity to participate. So, if Todd, if that is still an open option, I'd love to have that in the minutes, that communication in the minutes.
Yeah, we're never going to turn away feedback. That's the whole goal of this, to be able to get as much input as we can to really shape this pathway that we're looking for. So,
Thanks.
Thank you.
Andrew, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that, of course, the Scarborough Land Trust works very closely with a lot of other entities, including the town of Scarborough. We talk frequently with staff, including Todd and Tom. We also work very closely with Friends of Scarborough Marsh, and take their basically acquisition priorities and try to incorporate them into our acquisition strategy. We have a FOSUM board member that sits on our acquisition committee. And we also have a new conservation director. It's a brand new position. Scott Kunkler just started last week, and his job is to pursue land protection in the town of Scarborough full time.
Great. Excellent. Thank you. That's good news.
And can I just share one
Yeah.
thing unrelated to Scarborough Land Trust? But it is related to the Downs. I had a meeting a couple weeks ago with a member of their team who is taking the lead on trails and conserved areas. So they acknowledge that they owe us kind of their conservation and open space plan. So that is on their radar. They are in the process of pulling together their map of their trail system for their residents, and they said that they would share it with the town when it's available. I did convey concerns that they aren't necessarily connecting the Eastern Trail, and they did say that they're working on it. And she also said that she would be willing to come speak at one of our meetings if folks want to hear more. So probably late summer, early fall might fit in a presentation from them so that we have a better understanding of what their conservation, open space, and trail plans are.
Thank you. And I'm just mindful that, the Downs is the more significant size-wise development happening in town, but there are other large developments happening in town. I was just catching up to one that came before the town council a week ago or Monday or whatnot, that is just very near the Downs, just 2 roads over, 334 units. And then we've got the Massey Road one that we're going to talk about momentarily. So just ways that this commission can help guide good practices. We have under conservation planning, identify opportunities for stormwater management as an opportunity. And I know there are other committees that are looking at town committees that are looking at that. How do we use nature-based solutions, green planning and development? And perhaps there's a way that we can, we can support the town council, especially when there's a growth management ordinance waiver underway, to have the Conservation Commission give some guidance about things that we might be able to request in that, to see that. So that's nice to hear that the Downs team has plans for open space and trails. Let's work together for our broader vision around what we want in the town to encourage that kind of balance when there's heavy development going on in all areas. I'm connecting to a couple of several of the town committees, and that's ongoing so that we can continue this sort of cross communication and collaboration, frankly. The sustainability committee is one that we'll talk about towards the end here, that's has some guidance that they'd like the town council to consider in their consideration of the growth management ordinance waiver for that the Downs has requested. Anything yet on building resiliency, creating the climate action plan and resilience plan? I know that we've got, thank you, Jamie, and congratulations again on the community action grant approval. Pete, do you have anything that you'd like to update us on the overlay zones?
Yeah, I did well, actually this, well, I guess it ties into the next one. So, the ordinances.
Yes,
So,
go ahead, the ordinances, yep.
So, I had a chance to kind of look through our existing ordinance structure, and I think it certainly would make sense to have Eric or somebody from code think about or look at some of the ideas or ones I've identified that think need to be probably updated or included in an update if we're talking about resilience overlay zones. I have a list. I don't know if you want to just amend the notes with that or not right now, but of the different ones, and of course most of them are related to zoning. Chapter 405, 405A, floodplain management, 405B, site plan review, 405C, shoreland zoning, and 406, subdivision possibly. And then we'd also need to address our pest management policy in areas, whether or not it just relates to town-owned property. There's still town-owned property that's going to be within a certain distance of a coastal resilience overlay district or within, the district itself. And I also did a little bit of research about what other communities are doing for this. And there's a model that Brunswick has, but it's for aquifer protection. So they have aquifer protection districts. But it does the same concept, which is in zone or tier 1 of the district, you can only do like 1 or 2, 3, 4, 5 things, whatever. Or a lot of more activities are prohibited. And then in a second and third overlay districts, those activities become slightly more lax. So there is a model that's out there. It's not directly resilient. It's not directly related to coastal resilience, but the model of having kind of these different protective districts could potentially be adapted to Scarborough. So that's kind of what I have right now. That's some of the research I did. And I would definitely want to touch base with Eric or somebody from Code to make sure that I'm not missing something in terms of the ordinances that we'd probably need to change, because there's such a big list of ordinances that there might be. I tried to kind of go in each one and look for setbacks and wetlands and just search terms. And the other thing to think about, of course, is as we incorporate thinking about sea level rise in these, that might change a little bit as well. But I think I've identified the key ones.
Great. Thank you. Eric, I don't know if you want to reflect on that.
Yeah, I guess one of the things that kind of comes to mind, and Pete, I don't know if you saw this, is that the town actually has a aquifer protection overlay zone already. And I think certainly speaking to kind of what Brunswick had, there's certainly opportunity to improve that. Right now, it kind of speaks to, having impervious surfaces if you're storing any chemicals or vehicles, so if there's nothing that leaks through into the ground, certain things like that. So I'm happy to work with you on those amendments and loop in maybe someone from Code, as you had mentioned, and I think those are really good ideas.
Okay, thanks. It's a good start.
Thank you, Pete.
Well,
And then our third bucket is promoting engaged citizen stewardship. We've talked about or mentioned the educational opportunities. I don't know if there's anything new that folks want to weigh in on.
I will say that sitting squarely in my lap was a meeting to get us together so that we could talk, and I did not do it. So, very busy with the farm right now, but that is no excuse. So I'll make sure we get it set up and we can actually have something to report back, at least that we're meeting offline.
Okay, great.
Going forward.
Good. And thanks again, Rita, for the tick aware article. So you're already all kind of starting in some way. And we're brimming with a lot of ideas and potential here. So that's good. Are there any other thoughts or questions or requests around these goals? You feel good about them still? Oh, beautiful butterfly.
Sorry. Yeah.
All right. Let's go to Mussey Road. So the planning board is going to be meeting on the 16th, and on their agenda is a review of a new site analysis, which is included in the materials that everyone got. I don't know, Jamie, where do you want to go with this? Do we have Eric speak to it?
Yeah, I feel like, Eric, if you can kind of give an overview or a reminder of what the process is and what the process will be moving forward. I don't know if folks have had a chance to look at the materials that were in the packet. If there are any specific questions about that Eric might be able to at least try to address. Obviously, the developer will be presenting on this at the meeting on the 16th. So I think Eric probably has about the same level of information, maybe a little bit more than we do, but he's basically just seen the materials that have been submitted.
And then I would just say, any commission members, if we have questions that we want to bring forward or ask the planning board to consider as they're reviewing this, that would be, I think, really helpful. It would be a good role for us to play. I in particular see that last map in our packet, the one with purple and red and green and orange.
Share this in a minute.
Is a new to me map, and I wonder, Eric, if you can speak to sort of what does that indicate to you? Is this a change from maybe what we've seen before?
And I'll get it shared
Yeah.
in just a minute.
Yeah, so I guess that kind of is, it's not necessarily a change, but it is new information that was submitted. For those of you who weren't here or need a quick reminder of kind of what the project is and how we got here. The zoning ordinance specifies that large parcels over 5 acres and in some instances over 10 acres need to go through a process known as the plan development process. And that is a 3-step approach where the first step is called the site inventory and analysis. I'll call it site inventory for short. Basically where the applicant provides information on soils, wetlands, topography, any potential areas that would pose constraints to development. That's the phase that we're currently in the application that's in front of the planning board for Monday night next week. Right now, we're basically gathering information about the site, looking at the topography, and then one of the required submissions for that is a bubble diagram, which the applicant has represented in this kind of colorful way, showing the developable areas and some of the non-developable areas. And they're showing all the area in the rear that abuts Warren Woods and the Nonsuch as conservation area. So this is really the first step where the board kind of gets to ask questions about the site, kind of figure out which areas might be suitable for certain things and which areas might not be. It's sort of a unique scenario because they did come to the planning board with a sketch plan, which talked about a use, but in these inventory steps, we try not to mention that too much. Usually there's not a sketch plan for these types of projects, but in this case, we did have one. So we're going to try and refrain from talking about a potential use in our discussions, just so we can kind of focus on what's going on the site. The second step in this process after the site inventory is a master plan, which goes more into detail on the use and potential locations and layouts for buildings and parking and different easements and environmental areas. And then the third step is a formal site plan or subdivision. I think in this case, it would be a site plan for whatever use is proposed, where the board gets to review that in full. So it's a 3-step process, and we're currently about to review the first of the 3 steps. And with that, I would take any questions or comments on the project.
So just for those sitting in the room when this is really small, and I don't know how large it is on your screen, this purple area, they're proposing to remain conserved. The red areas are what they're proposing will be developed. And that green line through there is a Scarborough Sanitary District right-of-way on the property or easement that needs to be maintained. And then that area there is a wetland. And there is wetlands all back here in the area, the proposed conserved area. Pete, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I have a couple quick questions. One is it 2012 wetland delineation still valid?
Yeah, that's actually something I had brought up with them. I saw that and I was like, we're going to want something much newer than that. They actually have one from, I think it's 2020. I think they're still referencing that in their cover letter and they never changed it, but that's going to be something that I'm going to look to confirm with them again and have them submit. So they definitely have something newer. They just didn't change their narrative or provide it for us.
Okay, thanks. And 2 follow-up questions. One is, so it looks like there's a 250-foot resource protection, and that only extends from the channel of the Nonsuch River. That doesn't include the wetlands. So the setback for resource protection, not setback, but the RP is defined only from the channel, correct?
Yeah, I mean, the resource protection zone does include some wetlands of certain sizes. I don't know the specifics for this property, but I guess the wetlands on site didn't qualify for that.
Yeah, I'm wondering
But yeah,
why that is, if the wetlands are associated with tributaries of the Nonsuch or actually part of the Nonsuch, which is
Yeah,
supposed
that's a
to
good
be our, our, one of our key rivers in our area in terms of what we're trying to protect.
Yeah,
So that was,
I believe in shoreline zoning, the figure, it has to be at least 10 acres. But I can double check on that, but that's certainly a good question, Pete.
yeah, because I mean, that contiguous wetland area is certainly greater than 10 acres.
Yeah.
Adjacent to the Nonsuch River. So that I had one question about how they can penetrate that RP area with a lot of development, which is currently what their plan shows.
Yeah, that's a good question. So it actually kind of looks like they do have some setbacks, and it's sort of hard to see those white lines.
Right. I mean, that's what I'm looking at. The white lines are the RP, but then they've got a lot of red in those white setback areas, which I don't know if it's a setback or, what being within that white area means, if it's development. So those are just some of the comments and questions I had.
I think that might be a result of the orange kind of overlapping with the purple. So that I don't think that's actually a developable area that they're identifying. I think it's those topography lines that are in orange getting combined with the purple.
No, these are distinct white lines. White dashed lines.
Oh yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. And then I was wondering why there was no building setback black line drawn in the middle of as it goes through the developable area. Seems to me that they would want to establish their setback line through the developable areas as well, not just along the roads and the rear of the property.
Yeah, I think that's probably going to come more during the master plan phase when they start talking about uses and potential layouts.
Okay.
Right now, I think they're just we're at a point where we just kind of want to get an idea of what's existing on the site and what constraints there might be. So
okay,
it's definitely a good thought for the next step for sure.
Great, thanks. Those are the comments I had. Thank you.
And Noah also has had his hand up, so we'll go to him and then Marla.
And then it looks like Chuck too.
Oh, Chuck too.
Pete, thanks for those questions. That was really helpful context. Eric, can you, at this point, I realize this is probably pretty preliminary, but can you talk about the 37 acres of potential conservation land? Would that remain with the landowner or would that be gifted to the land trust?
That's a good question. I think that's going to be something we're going to have to bring up to the applicant. They're going to have to show us at some point in this process, likely the master plan or even the site plan phase, who would be owning that and maintaining it. Currently, there's really no details that have been provided on that. They only really gave us about a one-page narrative, about maybe page and a half narrative that you guys all were provided. That doesn't really speak to that a whole lot. So that's definitely something we're going to be asking them going through this process.
Andrew has his hand up, so he may be able to speak to that a bit.
Thanks.
Yes, I can speak to that a little bit. We have talked to the developer. We have expressed that we are very interested in taking any conservation land on the property and including it in Warren Woods and being able to manage that as a natural area, doing what we typically do in terms of invasive species control, wildlife management, etc. And having kind of both sides of the river, the Nonsuch, based on another project we're doing, which is a blue trail along the Nonsuch, which would help kind of add to that project. I have not seen this map. That we were talking back when they were putting in a contract zone proposal that never got fully all the way through the process. It was pulled. That contract zone had a different map in it and different setbacks, but we are talking to the developer, I guess, let's say that.
Thank you, Andrew. And I'm mindful of time, so let's, but this is important. So if we can sort of make our questions compact as possible.
Sure. So the red areas that are developable, does that mean that those entire areas could be cleared, parking lot, buildings? That's the definition of what developable is. Is that correct? It doesn't necessarily mean that's going to be 100% impervious surfaces, but it could be 100%.
Yes, we do have ratios in our ordinance. I think I talked about this last time. I think it might be 80%. Might be the figure. I'd have to go back in the ordinance and look, but there are certain limits, and obviously they're going to have to comply with any DEP restrictions, and we're going to have our engineering team review it as well. So, I mean, it is developable, but that certainly doesn't mean that entire area will be developed, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, okay, because my concern is that the wetlands that are potentially destroyed in this project are going to raise the level of the Nonsuch River. It has flooded. I mean, it's flooded over Payne Road already, and I just wonder if more impervious surfaces are going to mean there's greater potential for road issues and flooding problems.
Yep, I think that's something we're definitely going to take a look at.
Okay, thank you.
Chuck?
Yes, the red areas are developable, and there's one of them is detached. Is that going to be developed? And does that not kind of mess up our desire to have contiguous open land development? It's just kind of an island in the middle of.
So I guess we don't really know that at this point. In previous, at the sketch plan, I don't think that area was really developed, and I think it was mainly because it would require that wetland crossing. But I mean, that's going to be something we're going to look to and find out when we start talking about uses and the layout of the site, for sure.
Well, what I heard in the planning board meeting was discussion of having overflow parking for Nonsuch Brewery across the street. And I wondered if that was the plan for that, stick out red area, developable area.
Yep. So they had talked, so that was potentially going to be part of the contract zone that never went anywhere. I haven't heard that as part of this application, but I know it's something that the applicant and Nonsuch have been interested in for sure. So that's another good point to kind of bring up to them during the site inventory to see kind of what they might think for that area. I think that's something we're going to have to ask them. But as far as I'm aware, it's not part of this proposal.
And Pete has his hand up as well. Are you? Go ahead, Chuck.
Oh, yeah, and what, I don't understand about the 37 conserved acres. Is that part of the proposal that there be 37 of those acres conserved? And is that the green portion?
The purple
The
portion
purple is 37.
is the
that
37
not now
acres.
conserved.
Correct.
I see.
Pete?
Yeah, I wonder, Eric, if you could talk a little bit about the designation there of the existing sewer easement where it may restrict development. What is the precedent with that, or why are they just saying may or anything like that?
So I know when we reviewed this at the staff level, the sewer district had concerns about being able to access their infrastructure that's down there. So I think that really limits the applicant for this. And I keep saying it, but we're going to have discussions with them as they kind of bring a layout plan and a site plan or a master plan concept to us. But after a short conversation, I think the general consensus was that they were going to avoid that to the greatest extent possible. But I mean, we're gonna see what they come up with come master plan for sure.
And just a reminder that under a normal process like this, we have no idea what they would be proposing to do on this site. So we have a little bit more information because of their initial kind of sketch plan submission to the planning board, but ultimately those plans can change based on what their site inventory and analysis shows. So I think we just need to assume that we don't know what their plans are there. We're just looking at potentially the areas that could be developed, and then through the master planning process, more information about the development plans will come forth.
One more quick question. The bracketed area in the top left corner, what's that mean?
What are you talking? Oh, it looks like the purple is over the orange.
This-
hash.
Yeah, that.
Eric, do you see where?
Yeah.
James-
Yep, so let me just pull these up real quick. Sorry, I have too many things open. So I think that is probably some steep slopes that kind of
Steep slopes, he said. So the orange lines are topography lines.
Oh.
Is that correct, Eric?
I think so. It's not on their legend. It might be on another one of their plan sets. They
Those
have
are
it-
defined, those are defined steep slopes, I think. After looking at the plan.
on, if you scroll up 2 more pages, they have it on that same.
So
My computer's going to be really angry with me.
So what I'm getting from this, from our, touch on the downs and this other nearby development is, this property in particular, there's questions around cutting down trees, replacing with pavement. There's certainly density of residential property, which is good because it's part of the comprehensive plan to place these properties in certain areas. And there's still a chance for us to use these to add green infrastructure. How can we look at what are the guidelines for how many acres of trees can be cut down for clear cut for asphalt for paving over? How can we use, I've just been looking at some, and I'll share it with the committee. There's a great FEMA report on building community resilience with nature-based solutions, and another EPA report on green infrastructure guidance that can benefit towns. So I think just what I don't know, and I'm not confident in, is that our town really embraces these practices. I believe it's part of our comprehensive planning, and I know there are other committees that are looking at it, but there's a way that this commission can really weigh in and encourage this, especially as we're looking for how the planning board and how the town council makes requests of developers. That's also responsive to the community that is really concerned about the pace of growth. And what I hear is the concern around the pace of growth comes along with how do we keep Scarborough's natural resources? How do we continue to respect those and keep them alive? So all of this is sort of coming together. Really, so April, if we could hear an update from town council, from your position on town council.
Yeah, so I have 2 things that I wanted to share with the commission tonight. The first of which is related to the school building project. So they are at a point now where they have started discussing subcommittees. And for the building subcommittee, they are looking to have a sustainability subcommittee. There is an application to join the building steering committee. The other committee that's open right now is communications. So I will get the link to that application to Jamie, and I know she always does such a great job sending out kind of the after meeting materials. And so I'll make sure that that link gets to Jamie. So just to ease communications there. And then the other thing that I wanted to say was that I have leveraged my liaison roles and my role on the communications committee to make the next, I am proposing anyway, at the next council meeting, that our next Council Corner Live be titled Conservation and Sustainability Scarborough.
Wow.
And so the proposed date for that is going to be, we just had our communications committee meeting today, right before that. So we are looking at Thursday, June 16th for that Council Corner Live. And again, you know, the first, because there's so much bureaucracy, first it has to come out of the communications committee as a request to the full council before I know for sure if that's going to be the topic. But no one else proposed a topic, and I don't think anyone else is volunteering to lead the Council Corner Live. So I think I've got a good shot of securing that. But I will, again, I will keep everybody updated if anything should change. But for now, I think it's pretty safe to pencil that in
Fantastic.
for that day.
That's 2 days after the election.
Yes,
Nice. Thank you.
you're welcome.
I'm gonna have to
Thank you,
scoot out of
Marla.
here.
Marla's
Thank you.
leaving us. Thank you very much for all the background tonight. Planning board.
Eric, do you have a planning board update in addition, and anything else other than the Mussey Road?
I think the only other thing I would mention is that we have received an application for a project that is going to be at the Saco Scarborough town line in the Route 1 area. It's on a larger parcel, and I think it could potentially have connection to the Eastern Trail, but
Hold on, can you say that again? You cut out. It could potentially what?
potentially have connections to the Eastern Trail, I think runs back that way. But as we get more details on that project and schedule it for a public agenda and hearing, I'll be sure to send that to you, Jamie, so it can be dispersed to the commission.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I assume there's no update on the main turnpike connector. I checked the website earlier today.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything.
Nothing there. You all heard that the community action grant was successful. So Maine DOT is starting their preliminary survey work of the two roads this month, and letters have gone out to abutters to notify them that DOT crews or their contractor will be out there doing survey work, and there are likely to be articles coming out in the paper. I spoke last week with a reporter from the Forecaster, and so just getting the word out that we got the grant, but really the engagement will start probably in the fall is what the town and DOT has discussed most recently. And I can give a sustainability committee update as well. So a couple things. Randy was talking a bit about concerns about development and cutting down trees and all of that. And the sustainability committee has been talking about preserving our trees as much as possible in Scarborough, and is interested in working with the Conservation Commission on potentially proposing a tree ordinance that will look at minimizing tree cutting and proposed development. This all came about because our solar ordinance actually prohibits the cutting of trees for building solar arrays. It's the only type of development in town that prohibits cutting of trees. It's a little backwards. I mean, the committee is very concerned, obviously, about maintaining trees. But the message we're sending is basically don't conserve your farmland or do this lower impact type of development, cut down your trees, put up housing lots and roads, and that is fine, but cutting down trees for a solar array is not. So we need to work on making some revisions to that, and that discussion all led to ways that we might be able to reduce the amount of tree cutting that is happening in other types of development as well. And so the Sustainability Committee is interested in kind of meeting with Conservation Commission at some point to start those conversations and possibly collaborate on that together. The other item that was briefly discussed at their most recent meeting was related to the exemption that the Downs is seeking to the town's growth management ordinance. And the thought was that they would like to propose to the council that if they do grant that exemption, that they at least consider requiring some sustainable practices like EV charging in any of the parking areas or common parking areas, possibly doing solar ready rooftops if the roof angle is conducive to that. And so they were going to work on coming up with a list of suggestions that they would like to pose to the council. I know Rick Leinking, the chair, reached out to April.
Rick and I are having coffee on Wednesday morning.
Okay.
And so I looped Randy in with Rick as well, because the thought was the Conservation Commission might want to either take a similar approach or do a joint memo to council with some suggestions related to sustainable practices if they are going to get a waiver from the growth management ordinance.
We're playing phone tag right now, so.
What'd you say?
We're playing phone tag. Rick and I are
Great.
in touch with each other.
So that is sustainability.
Very good.
Good movement. Any other thoughts? So we're going to be looking forward to inviting Andrew to speak to us, hopefully at the next meeting. We'll be in touch, Andrew, about that. And we'll have some further updates on our goals sheet. And we have had some questions for Eric to consider as they're reviewing the site inventory for the planning board meeting on the 16th. If there are any other questions from the commission, let me know. We can pass those along. Anything else tonight? Thank you for staying over a few minutes. I thought it was all worthwhile conversation. And we're looking forward, hopefully, with good hope of having some new official members next month.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks all. Nice to see you.
Do we have to have a motion
Good
to
night.
adjourn?
Nice-
No, I think we can go. I think everyone's on board with adjournment.
Good night.